Joining us now in the Element Well studios on Middays, the Attorney General of the great state of Mississippi, Lynn Fitch. General, thanks for coming in. Always good to see you.
Great to see you. Good morning.
Well, we got a lot of stuff going on. We'll get right to it. Today, I believe, I think it's the Senate starts hearing testimony from Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown, right? And it starts
correct.
Today, right? Today?
Those hearings start today.
Okay. And she being the first African-American female, I believe, nominated to the high court by Joe Biden. And I'll talk about that later. But first of all, there have been some questions, I think that is a safe way to state it, about Judge Brown's judicial philosophy, which is essentially what is to be considered in one of the matters to be considered, one of the aspects of the individual. And some of that has surfaced. I'm not sure it was widely known. I certainly didn't until she got nominated to the SCOTUS, and now lots of reports have been written about her. So what are your thoughts about Judge Brown?
Well, we'll definitely be watching her hearings very closely. We'll see how she answers the questions. I think that's going to really demonstrate what type of jurist she might be, how she might sit as a justice. We'll see what her temperament's like, and certainly her philosophy will come out. So I think these are very important. I think it's going to be very key for all of our senators to be very engaged in this hearing with her. But I have to tell you, I'm really troubled about her record on sex offenders. And I really like to spend a few minutes talking about that, Gerard, because she served certainly as a judge, and she was also a member of the United States Sentencing Commission. Very important serving on that commission. However, her position was, as a member of that commission, was that if you just viewed or if you shared child pornography, it should be viewed as a lesser crime. Well, that is horrific to even think that that should be a lesser crime, because the child is victimized time and time again. Every time you show that picture, that's an abuse to that child. That child has to relive. So there shouldn't be anything lesser about that crime. It should be all about the predator. And clearly, the evidence shows that if you engage in child porn, you are more than likely to be guilty of some type of abuse. Recently, there was a study done in North Carolina. And so as they interviewed these predators, the ones that had child pornography, who had viewed it or shared it, they originally said, before they were incarcerated, that as they were convicted of possessing child porn, they only admitted to hands-on of a prior offense of some type of abuse of a child at 26%. But once they were incarcerated, they changed their tune. Yeah. They said, oh, by the way, 85% admitted to not only possessing child porn, but also engaging in some type of other hands-on abuse of these children. And I think that's really indicative of what we're seeing from the left. The left have really become apologists for sex offenders.
Unbelievable.
And time again, we see that reported in the media. We see that in their interviews. And it's all done at the expense of these victims, and it's done at the expense of the safety of the public.
It just is something I've been saying on the program now for a while, is that it feels like that the goal is to decriminalize crime. It's where kind of we're headed. You look at these woke DAs across the country, probably the two highest profile in that category, Gascon in L.A., and who is it in Manhattan? The name escapes me, but the Manhattan DA.
Yes.
Anyhow, they're just Alvin is his first name, can't remember the last. But anyhow, they both seem to be more concerned about statistics of which races get convicted and incarcerated, and more concerned about that than they are actually, well, if you did a crime, it really doesn't matter, and we're supposed to dispense justice in a blind fashion is the way we do it here in this country. But I just wonder if that has played in any way into Judge Jackson's pattern of just allowing these child porn offenders off the hook totally. She has a history of doing that, being called out, by the way, by Senator Hawley from Missouri on the Judiciary Committee there, and Senator Barrasso for Wyoming as well has made some rather critical comments about her history there. The bigger thing to me is I don't have a problem with obviously nominating anyone to the Supreme Court based on their race or their gender, if that's what he wants to do. I just think we got to focus more on their qualifications. She doesn't seem to be a qualified person at this point. That's the concern I have.
Well, look, I totally agree. When it gets down to protecting predators versus protecting the victims, that's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly encouraging the senators, to take a hard look at her record on how she has treated as a judge and as a member of the United States Sentencing Commission these predators, and how she's overlooked the value and the dignity of these children that have been victimized time and time again. And, as we talked about it, it's become apologetic for the left side. Most recently, we have the American Law Institute, and what they do is they provide revisions to the model penal code. Time and time again, states adopt all of it or part of what these revisions might be, because, again, you hope that it's all been looked at it from an overall perspective, and this is good language to go into our respective states' laws. Yeah. So very highly regarded. However, most recently, they have gone down a totally different path. What's happened is you've seen the ALI, who's a bunch of ivory tower elitists, academics who've never dealt with a victim, who haven't prosecuted a crime, they haven't been dealing with the offender, so they don't understand the complexity of what goes into these sex offender crimes. And so here's what they did recently. They made some provisions, and they are taking a tremendous leap backwards. And here's what they propose, that we should take a lesser crime offense towards sex trafficking, sexual assault, abuse, and exploitation, sex offender registry crimes. So they want us to take a step back and not go after these individuals. We, on the other hand, as Mississippians, we use these laws to protect our citizens, our children, our victims. And they want us to turn the other way and go for a lesser crime. And, just to give you some examples of what they've done, they really are making it easier to prey on children. But here's what they propose, Gerard, just a couple of examples. Well, first of all, they want to totally neuter the sex offender registry. They don't even see the value in that. Again, alarming that they would even propose that. But here's an example. The ALI proposed that incestuous sexual assault is only a registrable offense when the victim is under 16. So that means 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds have no recourse. So what happens to those individuals? The predators there, they've taken advantage of these young children, and now they have no recourse based on what ALI thinks should be promoted. Here's another example. So they said promotion, patronization, complicity in sex trafficking should not be registrable offenses. Amazing.
So what is the rationale for all these positions? Do they offer a rationale for this? I mean, I don't get it.
So here's what I think they're really looking at. They don't want to stigmatize these sex offenders.
But it is a stigma.
It is. I agree. They don't view viewing child porn, having child porn, doing any of these other things to be a problem. So they want to move away from that. I led a coalition of 37 attorney generals against opposing all these changes that the ALI was trying to do. And so we had some dialogue with them. They still took a bad path. They didn't accept our changes, even though you've got a bipartisan group of attorneys general going, this is wrong. We're talking about we need strong laws to go after these predators, to protect our children. And yet they bypassed us, and they're coming up with in May having their full meeting. And I can tell you, I'm going to get another coalition, and we're going to continue to go after ALI.
That is just unbelievable. Destigmatize something that really is just the height of horror, certainly for any parent in this country.
Well, our job is to protect these individuals, and they're taking that away from us.
Attorney General Lynn Fitch is our guest in the Element Wealth Studios on Middays. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the legislation that you're working on and get an update on the abortion case, the vaccine mandates as well.
That'd be great.
That is coming up after this break. Stay with us. Back in the Element Wealth Studios. SuperTalk Mississippi Middays. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. We're in the studios with Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch. So, General, you got a high-profile case coming up here at the Supreme Court, the so-called Dobbs case. It is what it is, how it is termed. And that deals with the abortion situation in this country, and the days are counting down, shall we say? This is going to be a landmark case, of course, and you are leading the effort. You're front and center on that in the state of Mississippi. As a result, June timeframe? Is that right?
Yes, you're right, George. It is a monumental case. It's an exciting time. It's wonderful that Mississippi is leading the cause in this regard. It's going to change the dynamics across our country, not only in our state, when this case comes down. We suspect it'll be the end of June before they render their opinion from the United States Supreme Court. That's the end of their term. And usually with very volatile or high-profile cases, they'll wait until the end of their term before they release it. Yeah. Now, if we were to get it earlier, that'd be great. I suspect, though, it will be the end of June. But it's been a very proud moment for us as Mississippi to lead this case. We've had so many partners, so many other states engaged. It's just been incredible. It's been an entire plan from the time we got that case to where we are now. And I'm very grateful for everybody that's been involved. And truly, we could feel the love and the prayers and the support as we worked through the whole strategy on getting to December 1st to argue the case. And now, as we're in second phase, because, again, we still are messaging on why this case is important, the significance, what will happen, what do we need to be doing as we prepare for the changing of this case. And I'll tell you, the Supreme Court, they're looking to see what Mississippi is doing. There's no question about it. So certainly, as we all know, 50 years we've been sitting there with no abortion policy-making decisions given to the states. So when they give it back to the states, we need to be ready. I mean, things have changed in 50 years, and we need to be changing as well. So when you give it back to the states, what are some of the things that we could and should be doing that are so key to how we'll react when SCOTUS gives us those rights back? Well, we have to show that we're being supportive of women because, you know, the whole nexus of our case is empowering women and promoting life, that you didn't have to do one or the other, that you could certainly do both. And I think that's been very key. I mean, things have changed in 50 years, maternity leave, paternity leave, flexible schedules, and on and on. But they're looking for other things to see what the state of Mississippi is doing as far as, and what other states will do as well. You know, we've been working with Susan B. Anthony list, and we're the pilot program right now. We also are working with many of the crisis pregnancy centers across the state, and we're working with them to help them strengthen what they're doing, how they support the women, how they support them getting back into the workforce, training, upskilling them, giving them opportunities, helping them with child care. I mean, it goes on, and we have got to be showing support for these organizations. And now, beyond this safety net, we've got to have some hard conversations in our state. This includes talking about child support. You know, women for too long have borne the financial responsibility of the children. We've got to have laws in place that allow the child support to be in place for these women, these children, and the mechanisms to enforce it. Again, the women should not have to bear that cost primarily from a financial and economic standpoint. We also got to talk about foster care. We've got to talk about adoption issues. Again, another hard subject. But we have precious children who need to be adopted, who would thrive. We've got loving families ready to take them in. And so we need to be prepared to make that happen as well. We need to talk about the foster care system. We need to prioritize these children and, again, putting them in with these families that will help uplift and empower them. We even have to talk about financial literacy, something we've talked about for a long time. But number one for women in poverty and financial education right here in the state of Mississippi. So we need to give that information to these women, help them, uplift them, change the dynamics. So we have to empower. So I say that to say all of that is the nexus of empowering women and promoting life of the Dobbs case, and it goes back to one of the biggest pieces of legislation we have right now. Right now percolating, we're so close to getting an equal pay law in the state of Mississippi. That is so exciting. The momentum is there. We have people across the state that are uplifting, talking to their senators, their representatives. And I'll tell you, it's the first time we've ever gotten this close. And I really appreciate Representative Cockerham, Senator Wiggins. They have led the call. So we've got two bills right now, Senate Bill 2451 and House Bill 770. And it's going to conference, and they are very close. And I am so grateful for their leadership, for the support of all the others that have stepped in to make a difference. And this will be the year to get it passed. And that speaks directly to the state of Mississippi and us empowering women.
Where do we stand relative to the other states in the country with respect to an equal pay bill?
So we are the only state in the country that does not have an equal pay bill. And that is significant, Gerard. That says right now, women, we don't think you're as important. We don't think you're a real tapestry of the workforce of the state of Mississippi. So if we change that, and let me remind you, we have a 27% pay gap in the state of Mississippi. 27% pay gap. National average is about 19%. But here's 27%. That absolutely is so critical and helps us uplift and change where we are in the state of Mississippi. We're going to lift women out of poverty, and of course, who lives with them? Their children. This is going to help with the brain drain. I mean, we've got so many wonderful college graduates, and we want them to stay here. It also helps with businesses. An equal pay law will attract new businesses and also complement the existing businesses. So this is such a win-win, and I'm really excited that we're almost there. And I encourage all of the listeners to please talk to your representatives and senators. Show your support for the equal pay bill. Show your support for women in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, so are there some companies or are there some individuals that have come to you, General, and said, you know, if this goes through, it could change me or change the way we operate our company, or individual employees say it could change the way that pay is approached within my company? Is there some that have brought their concerns to you about that?
You know, they've not been concerned. You know, we've done such a good job over the last few years talking about the significance, the importance of having equal pay. And when all of the other business communities across the state have embraced it and they've seen the positive avenues from having an equal pay law, no, we're getting more. Oh, we're excited. Okay. We're ready to move forward. The business community, I mean, just thinking about the impact that it'll have across our state.
Yeah.
I just am excited because it will certainly show to women that you are empowered and you are every bit as important as everyone in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah. And we're the only state that doesn't have. So explain to our listeners why this is important and how this relates to the Dobbs case, because that's really what's critical here.
It is. So in the Dobbs case, we very much our theme as we ask Roe v. Wade to be overturned because it's a rule of law question, and we ask those decisions to be returned to the states. So as we do that, every state needs to be going, well, what are we doing for women? How are we empowering women? Yeah. Well, as I just kind of gave you some of those other issues, whether it's a child support or adoption or financial education, equal pay is so critical because that will say the United States Supreme Court, they believe in women, they have stepped up, and they are going to be uplifting and empowering these women because those children live with those women as well.
Because has that not been something the left has used rather effectively, I might add, as a rationale for abortion?
They have. I mean, for 50 years, it was like, well, you have to pick one or the other. You couldn't have the office if you wanted to have children. And so the reality is when you have 49 states who have adopted equal pay, there's a whole different model of thought about how you can step in and help these individuals and their children.
Yeah. All right, so back to the Dobbs case. What are the possible outcomes from the Supreme Court?
Well, it could be any number. We feel very confident that it's going to certainly be returned back to the states because there's no constitutional text that allows them to keep the Roe v. Wade intact or Casey Planned Parenthood intact. So when they first look at it, we expect they're definitely going to say these are rule of law issues that should be returned. We are hoping that we get a complete overturn. They could do some parcels
some
of
in
it,
between.
But we feel very good that they're going to look at it, and we're going to have a very strong win in June.
But the bottom line is, if you do succeed and prevail with this strong win, you can effectively reverse Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
I mean, that's the outcome, right?
Isn't that it's exciting, yes. And Mississippi,
right here in Mississippi
led the way.
Appreciate your efforts on that, and thanks for coming on, General. Always good to see you and hear from you, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you more because the time draws nigh, as they say, for the Supreme Court to get to hearing the case. I know you guys are working hard, getting ready for it as well, you and your team.
We are. Again, a whole strategy in place until we get to the opinion, and then we'll be ready to go with next steps. So
great.